Chris Avina with American Outdoor News, and today we're here with Kristy Titus, the host of Pursue the Wild and podcast host of Wild and Uncut.
Yeah.
Kristy,
Thank you
thanks
for
so much
having
for
me.
coming on.
I appreciate you. Thank you for having me as your guest. It's quite my honor.
You know, I've seen you several times at the shows. I've never had the opportunity for us to meet. You were always with somebody, talking to somebody. I don't like to interrupt people, so.
It's the chaos and the beauty of those shows. It feels like if you don't have that 15-minute time slot scheduled with someone, actually getting in like a word in edgewise is ridiculous. As crazy as that sounds, we're all in the same space and we run by each other. It seems like there's never enough time. It's actually a tragedy.
Yeah, it's a fast week, fast 3 days, whatever it is. It always goes by so fast.
Yeah.
Now, now, can you tell us a little bit about your journey into the outdoors? I mean, it's not a natural progression, is it?
Well, I mean, for me, it was. I mean, my family, from the time I was 2 years old, we had mules and we rode into the backcountry. And I mean, to being outdoors is just a part of my life. I spend every free weekend I can packing my mules in to this day. It's one of the reasons I moved to Wyoming is that there's so many, untouched, truly wild places and landscapes left. It's kind of that last frontier. So for me, it's a part of my DNA. And I was just blessed to grow with parents that supported me being a little wild child, if you will.
Yeah. Now, how does that move you into Pursue the Wild? What made you decide to start your own show?
Well, it really wasn't intentional. I actually started with service in mind. So, as a child, my parents were always members of the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, and they're almost back to the inception of the company, and so that was something I grew up with, hearing in my household the importance of conservation. And to this day I professionally work with RMEF, and then I also work with Safari Club International. So in my 20s, which I don't want to date myself, that's a long time ago. In my 20s I started volunteering for SCI as well, and I worked you know as a volunteer, and I stuffed envelopes. And then, strangely enough, I got brought into more leadership positions within my local chapter. So eventually I ended up being chapter president, which led me to going to Washington, D.C. with SCI and lobbying. And, that's one of the reasons I love that organization is they have had and do have a pulse on politics in our country that affect hunting and gun rights and everything that we hold near and dear. And they have lobbyists and staff that live and work in Washington, D.C. So it's always been very important for me to be a part of that organization, and I still proudly am. So I started working with them, and then kind of backhandedly, I ended up going on a TV show with Mike Rogers. And then I ended up working with a women's clothing company, which used to be called She Outdoor Apparel, well, She Safari. I helped a corporate rebrand occur at one point, where we rebranded it to She Outdoor Apparel. And I actually was with them when they redesigned their current logo and was part of that process a long time ago. And then I helped Under Armour start their women's hunt division for their clothing launch following that. And then it
Wow.
just kind of was a strange occurrence of, I had tremendous business knowledge and sales experience, and then also hunting, experience on that public land side. And the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation gave me an opportunity to do a hunt at one point with, I must admit, a lot of begging. Like I relentlessly hounded them. And then it turned into me co-hosting their show for 6 seasons with Brandon Bates. And
Wow.
at some point they said, look, we're gonna they went off network and they did this digital platform, and they said, this might be a great place and space for you to create your own series. And I ran with it, and now we're filming this year. We're airing season 7 right now, and I'm filming season
Wow.
8. So it's just been it's unreal to think about how many years I've been doing TV and media now, and then also on that nonprofit side, um, serving organizations and trying to be a good steward to the resources that we love so much.
Yeah, you serve on the outdoors on a lot of different levels, and your upbringing, it fueled your passion for the outdoors, but what sparked your political side? What made you get so entrenched in fighting for our rights?
Well, if we don't fight for it, we lose them. So that's the biggest thing is collectively we have to have a strong voice, and we have to have a voice that reaches the court of public opinion. So it's really important for us from the hunting community to influence. Um, the anti-hunter is a lot harder to influence than the non-hunter, and there's so many people in our country that are on the fence. They're not anti-hunting and they're not necessarily pro-hunting. They just kind of ride that center path of, they're like, oh well, yeah, you hunt white-tailed deer, okay, I understand that, but they may not understand hunting different species like wolves. And so it's really important, I think, for us to educate the non-hunting community the importance of sound wildlife management, but also influencing our government officials. So a lot of our government officials are also coming from that kind of non-hunting stance, or they feel a lot of pressure from anti-hunting groups that have very, very big pocketbooks and very, very loud agendas, and they're very good at flying around very vivacious representations of anti-hunting, that really put a bend on these politicians. And so
Mhm.
it's important for us all to get in the ear of our politicians and bend them our way as well.
It's funny how much money um, we as hunters and outdoorsmen raise so much money on our own through our own validity, through the Pittman Robertson and various self-imposed taxes.
Yeah.
But yet these anti-groups, they raise a ton of money and none of it goes towards conservation. Their
Well,
money goes towards pointing the finger at you and me and them and blaming uh, hate campaigns. That's where their money goes.
Well, and they spend a lot of time campaigning on lies. I mean, if you look at advertisements for that are anti-grizzly bear management, for example, they don't have
Mhm.
a picture of a big boar grizzly bear that is, 18, 19 years old. They have a picture of a sow with a cub, and they make it seem like you're going to rob this poor baby bear of its mother. And so they appeal to the heartstrings of these non-hunters that don't know any different about hunting laws or regulations, or the
Yep.
ethos that goes behind hunting. I mean, you even see it with like puppies and kittens. They talk about, save the puppies and kittens, and then they euthanize 90% of them, but they don't actually tell people that.
Yep.
So they're generally a marketing machine, and they're making a lot of money, and they're selling a lot of lies that paint the hunter in a very bad picture with a very broad and very effective brush.
Well, you don't need to go any further than the wolf issue.
Yeah.
The wolf is the poster child for the non-hunters.
Mhm.
Um, and we see them being reintroduced into Colorado and various states, and they multiply very quickly and they infringe on personal space. The cattle farmer, the sheep farmer, where they got to drive around 24/7 to make sure that their stock is okay.
Well, and they're devastating to wildlife as well. But it goes beyond that. We're also fighting for simple things like the ability to use lead ammunition, and the fight for that, and that's an ongoing fight. And being able to bait bears, that's been another tremendous fight. The use of
Yep.
dogs when hunting mountain lions, and I've got to tell you, in my 40 something years, I'll just leave it at that, of going to that country. I have seen a mountain lion in the daylight without a dog twice in my life. And so, these are effective tools, using dogs to hunt mountain lions so that you can tree them, you can look at them, you can identify their age, you can identify their sex, you can identify how
Mhm.
mature they are in their life cycle, and you can walk away. And so, but they don't tell that story of strategic management of species. They just make it sound like we're chasing these poor lions around the forest with dogs, and they're completely helpless, and we're horrible. And so it's just really trying to re-educate, and get involved, because once, as we all know, the government takes a right from us, we don't get it back. It's very, very rare that legislation is overturned. It takes a
Yep.
mighty effort to overturn legislation. So we have to really put these checks and balances in place. Being active in a group like SCI is a first step of working first for hunters.
Sure. Now let's shift gears a little bit. You've been at this a long time. Uh, you're involved in many aspects of the outdoors. What challenges have you faced as a woman in the outdoors, and how have you overcome that?
I hate to say this, this is probably like not the most feminist in movements. Like the feminists out there of the world might be angry at me, but I really don't feel like I've faced any challenges being a woman in the industry. I believe I'm as capable and as competent as any man. And the only limitations that have defined me in my career or what I'm doing are the ones I put on myself. And so I feel very blessed
Mhm.
that being a woman hasn't stigmatized me, and I don't feel slighted by gender inequality or anything like that. So yeah, I mean the
Yeah.
only thing that I've really seen that has really transpired over the years is and has been kind of significant is being a part of kind of this movement of recognizing that there are women in the outdoor and hunting space, with manufacturers making clothing for women. Like I work with a clothing company called Born Primitive. It's all made in the USA clothing, and they make stuff for girls that fit girls, which is it's such a small market. You have Ruger firearms, and they're making firearms with adjustable length of poles so that not only women can use their firearms comfortably and accurately, but also small men. And so there has been a huge shift in my life cycle in the industry of recognizing and embracing women and welcoming us, because we are the gatekeepers of our homes. And once we're involved in something, the family is, and that's important for the continuation of our hunting traditions.
Well, I'm sure you'll agree with me when I say this, that over the past, say, 15 years, maybe a little more, hunting really has become a genderless sport,
That's right.
where prior to it was primarily a male sport.
Yeah.
Now it's, because I've hunted with women that are much better hunters than me.
Yeah, and that's one thing about hunting is it's something that anybody can do. I've been on hunts with a lot of combat wounded veterans, and there's a saying with them is adapt, improvise, and overcome. And there is a space in the hunting world where you can still provide for your family. You can be a part of this beautiful circle of life, regardless of physical limitations. And that is one beautiful thing about the hunting community is we welcome everybody into hunting. And the Second Amendment community, we welcome everybody to be a gun owner. We want everybody to be able to be their own first responder, to be their own first line of defense, to enjoy the fun found in shooting sports. And that transcends all politics.
Yeah, that's what people should really know, that you're a huge Second Amendment advocate. You're a member of the Ruger shooting team, um, an incredible bow hunter.
Yeah, yeah. I shoot for bear archery, and that, following in the footsteps of Fred Bear, hunting today is really important to try to preserve his legacy. And his, the things that he tried to create was that there's not just a season for hunting. There is archers, there's rifle hunters, and that at the end of the day, we're all here for the same reason. And that shared unity and that voice that Fred Bear had transformed hunting completely. And it's just such an incredible story and legacy.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, what some people may or may not know about you is you're a certified fitness trainer.
Yeah.
You are a fitness fanatic.
Well, I've had my ebbs and flows with fitness fanatic. Okay. So like I'm on the boat right now, but or on the wagon, I should say right now, but I have fallen off the wagon of fitness for sure. So it's been, fitness has always been a struggle for me. I was never like an athletic kid. And so it's, being in shape, something I've always had to really fight for. And, I did figure competitions and things like that once upon a time. And, I used to consider myself an athlete. I don't necessarily anymore, but it is a caveat. Your body is a caveat to getting you out there and helping you recover quickly and enjoy more sunrises and sunsets. And as you get older, you appreciate a pain-free aspect of that.
That's
So
a fact.
taking care of myself is important.
And plus, some of these hunts that you go on, uh, going on a sheep hunt or even an elk hunt, you really have to be in pretty good shape to
Oh
climb
yeah.
those mountains and chase those elk and um, mountain goats and whatnot. Yeah, there's only so many times you can make it up that mountain.
Yeah, everybody only has so many climbs. Well, even last weekend, my girlfriend and I packed 5 horses and mules in, and it's a lot of work when you're wrestling, 1,500-pound animals and you're putting saddles on and tack and navigating the mountains with them. And it does require, it's a tremendous amount of physical effort, especially when you don't have somebody doing it for you. And so, yeah, I mean, I have, I kind of got married and then I fell off this like physical fitness bandwagon, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna drink the wine and eat the cheese and travel with my husband, and the gym became less important. And the last year and a half I've really had to try to kind of do a little bit of a refocus and um,
Hmm.
refresh on that, especially since I've hit whatever age I'm at in my 40s now. I'm like, okay, it's time to really focus on myself because, as we age, especially with women, we deal with things like, bone density issues and osteoporosis. And,
Yeah.
I want to be able to survive a fall without breaking a hip in 30 years. So that's my goal with getting strong bones and lifting heavy weights.
Well, once you've um, been an avid gym person, you always get drawn back.
Oh
No
yeah.
matter what your age, you just get pulled back into it.
Yeah. You were an athlete once, were you also as well?
As a kid growing up, I always played ball. I played football, lacrosse, and whatnot. And I've always been in a gym on and off. And uh, I still am every morning. Um,
Mhm.
I got to cut back on my weight that I left because at my age, there's no reason for me to be pushing the weight that I'm pushing.
Yeah.
Yeah, these shoulders can only last so long before they need to be replaced.
That's with all of us, I think. We all feel it on our knees on cold mornings and
Oh yeah, I
yeah,
know it's raining out before I even open my eyes.
that's right. Funny how God gives us that gift of premonition in our bodies as we age. It's like a weather vane.
So, for young women that are interested in hunting that have never been out into the field, what kind of advice would you give them?
My advice would be to join a nonprofit organization, a conservation group, because so many of these groups have subgroups within them that really support women. So, for example, like SCI has Women Go Hunting. We also have a Sables organization. And so, also, if you've never been hunting, a lot of the members of these organizations, and I hate to say this is terrible, but a lot of them are retired and they have more time and more treasure to share. And
Hmm.
so you find somebody that has the desire to learn. A lot of the members have an opportunity to give. And that is just such a tremendous gift. And they give it so freely in these organizations. People want to see you succeed. They want to bring you into our world. They want to teach you how hunting is conservation, and hunting through conservation is the way to ensure our future for our wild resources. So that's the number one thing. Number two is there's a ton of different women's groups out there. I just did one last, well, in June is the Wild Women's Rendezvous. It was like almost 100 women went, and they did
Wow.
all types of training. I'm doing women's backcountry trips on horseback every year. There's a ton of women's groups. Wilderness is another group I've done some interviews with, that they've got a really great program. So there's a ton of women programs. The Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation now has a master class program which you can pay to get education and resources. And so a lot of these NGOs or nonprofits are really taking a lot of care and concern into ensuring that women have a welcomed space. Another organization I work really hand in hand with, I'm on the board for, is First Hunt Foundation. And the great
Hmm.
thing about First Hunt Foundation, it's not just like kids first hunt. We've had 75-year-old women come and go on their first hunt and get mentored through First Hunt Foundation. And so
Wow.
we have chapters around the country. So, if you're wanting to get involved, there's so many resources to connect into. And the great thing about the nonprofits like SCI is that when you connect into them, they have this whole network that they can introduce you to. And it's such a small but large community. It gives you at least that great landing place.
That's great. And, everybody should be involved in some sort of mentor program,
Yeah.
because that's our future.
Yeah, it's it. Well, it is, without mentors, we don't have a future at all. And somebody, taught me everything I know, and I'm still learning. Like, I still consider myself a student all the time. And that's one thing about our life and this life, is that we should never stop learning. And there's always somebody that can share some valuable information with us, and resources, and their time and treasure to really enrich our own lives. And in the process, of them helping us, they grow also. And it's just a wonderful cycle.
I agree. I agree. So season 7, what can we expect this season?
Well, we moved to Wyoming a couple years ago. So we did a cash out season in season 6 of my series, which showed cashing out my Oregon points as a resident and cashing out my Wyoming non-resident points. So last year was my first year hunting as a Wyoming resident. And so season 7 has a lot of, public land DIY hunting here in Wyoming. And, we moved to Wyoming so that we had, that Second Amendment sanctuary, constitutional carry, right to hunt and fish. And by golly, we take advantage of all of it. And so that's really fun.
Wow.
And season 7's a little bit different than my past seasons, because we're bringing in kind of a lifestyle component as well. So my husband and I are sharing, the process of building our home. And then I invite everybody in to meet all my mules and my horses, and kind of share the highs and lows of raising and training them, and then what I do to prepare my firearms, my bow, all of my gear for hunting seasons. And so it's just, it's kind of that full spectrum season, which I haven't done in the past.
It's a lot more to it than people think. Oh, they just hop on the horse and go. No.
Yeah, yeah, there's a lot to, well, especially when you're doing it yourself. So I mean, it's a lot of fun. There, like, I still go to the Midwest and do outfitted whitetail hunts, because I mean, it's just, for me to hunt whitetail, that's what you do. So I still have some component of some outfitted hunts, but a lot of it is that DIY, and hopefully people find some inspiration in that, and maybe decide to put in for tags, or try a new adventure.
Well, that's what most people do. I mean, the average person can't afford the hunts that, you might go on, or have sponsored or whatever. Most people are not sponsored.
Yeah.
And, most people don't have the disposable income, or do it for a living where they can afford it. And they do the DIYs and
Mhm.
DIYs. And I think they'll gain a lot of knowledge watching you do that.
Well, I hope so. And I hopefully they have fun with it also. And maybe get a laugh out of some of the interaction with me and my dad and my husband. And, we're all a little crazy and have a good time.
That's what makes it fun.
Yeah.
So where can we find you?
So on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, I'm just my name, which is at Kristy Titus. And then on YouTube, I have Pursue the Wild is my YouTube channel. And my website, if you want to watch all things in one location, just to make it easy, you can watch the Wild and Uncut podcast there. You can stream and listen to it. My podcast and show, Pursue the Wild, also airs on Carbon TV. So the podcast airs on Carbon, and the TV show airs on Carbon. People can watch in Canada on Wild TV or Wild TV Plus. And then in the United States, I'm also on Pursuit Channel Q3, Q4. So it's kind of like all over the place. But my website's a great spot to go, which is pursuethewild.com. People can go there and land and kind of navigate whatever they want to, and leave if they want to. they might get on that page and be like, no, I'm bored. I'm gonna go on.
They can save it for later. Come back. They always do.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you taking the time to talk to us today, and we look forward to season 7 and what's to come beyond that.
Hey, it's totally my pleasure. I appreciate you, and I hope everybody follows, and we can share in some epic adventures together.
Thanks again. I appreciate it.
Thank you.